with it. You being not you, but like let's say conservatives are more okay with it because your guy is doing the cuts.
Yeah, that's right.
But if it was George Soros is a perfect example.
Yeah, they would
the right would rightfully.
Yeah, they'd be like, this is a constitutional crisis.
Yeah,
they're like, we need January 6th again. You know what I mean? Like, it would be wild.
So then maybe the best way to do this is.
In this video, Andrew Schulz and Cigar and Jetty discuss the state of the U.S. government. Cigar says that he doesn't trust Elon Musk and that Trump is making a mistake involving him. And Andrew Schulz disagrees. With that, let's watch Andrew Schulz set another person straight about Trump and Elon.
We have to give some credence to a situation like that. And there might be more context to this. There might be a more nuanced take to it. I get it. Maybe Elon could describe it, sure. But on the surface, people reacting emotionally to it, that does look like corruption in another way.
Right? Yeah, like the Charlemagne thing. I heard your argument about this.
What was that?
Well, I thought it was interesting where you were like, hey, if you're a cop and you come to me and I'm like, yo, don't look in the basement. You're like, there's some shit in the basement. There's some shit in the basement.
100%.
Yeah,
so, but also just the idea of like government spending. Going to certain people, like this happens on like a municipal level where like the mayor is friends with the person that has the construction company, and that construction company gets the rebuilding project for the local bridge. And then he gets the kickback. Now, we know that that's a form of corruption. When we see this, it's okay for someone to look at it and be like, that kind of feels like the corruption you're trying to scrub out. Now, he might make the best vehicle for that job. It might be right to increase that spending. But I also need some transparency there, and you need to come out ahead of it, not wipe Tesla off the car. You need to come out ahead of it and gain my trust as an American and go, hey, this was the original deal. This amount was going to be spent over here. We think that this is better for these reasons, and that's why more money is spent there. And I totally get why you think this looks like a favor handed over. Like, stop. The American people are done being lied to. And when we see shit like that, we have such little trust. It's almost like a girl who gets cheated on by every boyfriend.
They kind of should have little trust. They're not wrong. They're correct.
The girl that gets cheated on by every boyfriend. The second a dude is talking to a waitress and she's laughing, the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, that motherfucker's cheating too. So that's what we feel like when we see that.
Yes, you're right. And I think it is important to talk about it in that way. And that's where it comes back to process. So like you said, we've got Doge, which is kind of unilaterally deciding what and what is not gets to be spent according to them. And so one of the interesting things I took away from your thing with Charlemagne, and if I were Charlemagne, what I would have said is, Andrew, it's fine to look, but they're not looking, they're actually acting. And the acting is the part where I think a lot of the liberals are I think correctly upset. I mean, let's be honest, like if George Soros or whatever was deciding what is what not getting spent, I mean, we would freak the fuck out.
You're okay with it. You being not you, but like let's say conservatives are more okay with it because your guy is doing the cuts.
That's right.
But if it was George Soros is a perfect example. The right would rightfully
they'd be like, this is a constitutional crisis. They're like, we need January 6th again. You know what I mean? Like, it would be wild.
So then maybe the best way to do this is have Doge look into it, share the findings transparently, what they are doing, and then hand it over to
it would be Congress. So
Congress.
If you want to do this, like, and this is, you know, remember when I said process? That is actually a huge part of it, because the real problem that they have is the unilateral decision making, the conflict of interest, possibly being over that. I mean, there have been a ton of shit like that, like the NLRB and other things. I've sounded like Crystal right now. She's got a list like 15 pages long of all this conflict of interest stuff. And you know what I have to say? I go, yeah, you're right. I was like, you know, empirically, this is not good. Like,
I have to agree. I can understand, if I was on the other side of the aisle, why Elon's close association with the government and his ability to act, cut funding, lay people off. If I was on the other side, I don't think it's unreasonable to say, what's in this for Elon? What's his angle here? Because we're not used to seeing people just do something without getting anything in return. So I've always supported Doge and their actions, and I want them to keep going. But I've always said that with the caveat that the second Elon Musk does something that appears to me to be corrupt or puts his own self-interest over that of the American people, I will criticize him just like I would anyone else. The problem is, for the left, is I don't think there's any evidence that I'm aware of, any credible evidence that he's done anything. Even that thing that Rachel Maddow brought up about, oh, look, Elon Musk is supposed to get this, however many $100 billion contract for armored vehicles to the U.S. government, and it was done under Joe Biden. So they're really reaching. Not to mention, I think it was the only car company that made the type of electric vehicles they were looking for. So while I understand that there needs to be some accountability on Elon's part, just like there needs to be accountability in our government, I just don't even think there's a hint yet of any wrongdoing. And if there is, they're hiding it very well. So I don't support corruption of any kind. So if I were ever to sense that with Elon, I would call it out. But as of right now, I want them to cut as much waste as they deem necessary. And if we need to rehire or restructure things because they made too many cuts, I'd rather be in that situation than just continue with a big, fat, bloated government. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
When you look at it in that way. And now, if he had sold all of his Tesla stock, if he had actually offloaded all of this and he was still doing it now, I would have a lot more trust in that. And I think most people would too.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that members of Congress and others should be allowed, or anybody in the government should be allowed to be able to even have the appearance of corruption because of the way that corruption is now so bedrock into our institutions.
I was very hopeful for Doge, and then I feel like, honestly, they just kicked the wrong person out.
Who's that?
Vivek. Yeah, not even just. I mean, obviously, I'm biased toward him, but like his entire thing was, I'm going to use the Constitution. I'm going to do this in a way that is palatable, but it's going to be uncomfortable. And he was upfront about all that.
The thing is,
and Elon is just kind of like.
What shocked me about it is Trump's deference to Elon. I think that's the part where maybe you guys can help me understand it, because I don't. First of all, it drives me fucking crazy when Elon's in the cabinet room wearing a fucking t-shirt and hat, and everybody else is in a suit, and he's standing in a room where, if you guys have ever been in the cabinet room, the president's chair is bigger than everybody else's chair. No person ever is supposed to be higher than the president. There's a rule, there's a famous scene in The West Wing. It's like, when the president stands, nobody sits. And in my opinion, when the president sits, nobody should stand. Why is Elon standing? Why is he? It just, to me, it's like, this is where the libs are correct, dude. Like, there's some weird shit going on here. I don't really get it.
I don't like it.
I can tell you,
it's
my fault. Like, from talking to Trump, if Trump feels like someone has information that he does not have, he becomes a listener.
Yeah, he's a deferential. You're right.
The second he's like, you know something I don't know. And I think that's what makes him so much better than anybody that the Democrats had in terms of understanding the problems of everyday people.
Oh, sure.
Because unfortunately, I think, and the Republicans too, like, remember, he's not like a traditional Republican guy. So it's like, politicians in general, there is a snobbishness to them. This feeling of like, we know what you need, let us handle it. And he's a type of person, just from that interaction that we had, who's like, the second you have information he doesn't have, he gets quiet and he kind of keys in.
Even if it's, what is the life of an everyday American? Because I don't live that life. You have it. It doesn't have to be what's the science behind blah, blah, blah.
You see this all the time. When he's in the barbershop or whatever, he's a genius, because what he does is he'll take your problem and he'll turn it around into the campaign. And he's like, that's what the greats always do this, is that they take the question.
Listen to what people are struggling with.
They go to the essence.
No, but they don't. How low is the bar for politicians that were like,
well, unfortunately,
this guy listens to us. He's a genius.
Then
what they do is they take you seriously, but not literally. So my favorite moment in a debate is when some lady in the 92 campaign asked Bill Clinton about the national debt. And it's like, she didn't really know what she was talking about. And he's like, she's talking about the economy. He's like, we've had 4 years of trickle-down economics. It hasn't worked, all this. He didn't ask her the same question about the national debt. But the point...
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
Like, he can see the truth. The truth behind it. Exactly. And that's what Trump, I think, is very good at. That's what all the greats are very good at. And I mean, continue, like, the Elon thing, to me, and this will make me very unpopular, I think it's becoming a problem. I think that this liberal, no, because right now there's a narrative online, which is, in my opinion, cope, is that a lot of these liberals,
what does cope mean?
Like, cope as in, like, they're coping, that they're coping,
like,
they're
living
getting
in
an excuse. Yeah, they're living in denial. There's a cope right now from the right that all of these liberal gatherings are astroturfed. And you know what? You're right. But the thing is that you actually,
a lot of terms that some people might not know.
Okay.
So in AstroTurf
means fake grass, right? right? So like what it means is that a large people are being paid to protest. I do not think that's true. I think that
this has happened in the past.
This has happened in the past, and it is an integral thing. But that's actually what a lot of liberals said about the Tea Party back in 2010. They're like, the Koch brothers are paying for it. I'm like, yeah, bro, but you can't just pay people to show up and be angry, and you still got blown the fuck out in the 2010 elections. What I'm worried about is the perception, perhaps correctly, that Trump is not completely in control of his own presidency. And we do see some of that, like in terms of the priority. The priority right now is not only with Doge, it's like the media capture around this Elon as the force, where I think it should be on Trump. And Trump has, in my opinion, a 10 times better political understanding of America. Like, I think if his narrative of the election was about immigration and it was about the economy, what I worry about right now.
Yeah, I just want to say something about what they said about Donald Trump, talking about him being deferential, talking about him listening to Elon, talking about him attempting to understand what the average American deals with on a day-to-day basis. Say whatever you want about his relationship with Elon and all that stuff. But what gets lost in this is, do you think that qualities like listening to people that have a better understanding of things than you do and acknowledging that and hiring them to make your organization better, do you think actions like that are that of a narcissist or a dictator or an authoritarian? I'd say it's the complete opposite. So we all know Donald Trump has an enormous ego. Everything's about him. But when the rubber hits the road and it's most important for him to have the best information on something and the best people to round out skill sets or that have a better base of knowledge in something than he does, he's totally willing to delegate things to other people that understand them better than he does. Anyway, that's just something that came to mind because I just feel like a lot of Trump's actions are so not indicative of an authoritarian leader that whole narrative, even though it was always stupid, looks even dumber now. But Cigar's point about like the cabinet room, I understand tradition and history and policy within that room, but the media was freaking out over a picture they saw. This is one picture. Elon Musk had been sitting in the back of the room, not even at the table, because that's for cabinet members. When he was speaking, it's when Donald Trump asked him to talk about something to the entire group, and that's the picture everyone sees, as if Elon's holding court. But that was one picture, and so I don't think it's a problem like Cigar does. I do think it is a optics problem because it just gives the left and people who don't trust Elon or hate Trump, just gives them more ammo to unjustifiably put lies in people's head. And I mean, if you look at the mainstream news coverage of this, that's what they're doing. And I don't want Elon to go anywhere. I don't want them to stop doing what they're doing. But other than getting rid of Elon, I don't know how you change that perception that the left is going to try to make a bigger deal out of than it really is. Anyway, let's wrap up the video.
For Trump is he's absorbing all of this pressure where Elon is, slapshot, cutting this, bringing people back by his own admission. I'm not making this up. Like, he's like, we fired people who were doing Ebola. We brought them back. Right now, they just fired a bunch of people from NOAA, the National Oceanic Administration, which those are guys who fly into the hurricane and be like, it's a category 4 or whatever. And it's like, dude, I've seen politics in the past. Like, the most dangerous thing a politician can do is misinterpret their mandate. So the most recent example we have is 2004, George W. Bush, the last Republican to win the popular vote. Republican, he wins that popular vote for one reason: keep us safe.
Yep.
Iraq, 9/11. Yep. You know what he does? Let's privatize Social Security. He's like, yeah, the American people voted for me. I want to privatize Social Security. Blown the fuck out in the 2006 midterm election. Not only that, Katrina. And what I'm worried about for Trump is, dude, even if it's not your fault, if there's a natural disaster and the Dems can point to NOAA getting, you're about to get fucking crucified, dude. Same with, you know how lucky they are that crash happened in the first week of the Trump administration? Can you imagine if that happened a year from now after some Doge cuts or whatever with the FAA? They would be destroyed.
So they will be responsible.
I am very worried for them that they're.
That's a good point too, as far as the optics, because the worst thing you can do is give Democrats ammunition. So anything that goes wrong after these Doge cuts have been made, even when the Doge cuts have nothing to do with whatever went wrong, you can bet your bottom dollar that it will be manipulated to appear as if the cuts drastically affected whatever happened. But I'll just wrap up with this. You know, they talked about Elon hiring people back. I know for a fact, like second, third hand info from somebody who worked at Tesla, Elon's gone on these kicks before. He's just fired a bunch of people. You know, he did it at Twitter. I think he did it at Tesla and SpaceX, just to make things leaner. And one of the people I'm thinking about went a couple weeks, and Tesla called him back and say, hey, you know, we overdid it. We want you back. We'll hire you back at making a quarter more than you were making before or something. So while that was really scary and unfortunate for that person, Tesla, and by proxy Elon, did make it right with him. But I say all that to say something I think I already touched on, but I just think you can always hire more people if you need them, but leaving it bloated just because it's like, well, we might need this person. If any job is described as we might need this, or I'm on the fence whether we should cut this person off or not, cut them, and then if necessary, bring them back or hire somebody else good to do the job. But we want to hear from you. What do you all think about Elon Musk's influence on the Trump administration? Do you think it's problematic? And do you think that the risk of Elon working with the Trump administration outweighs the benefit of all of the things he's doing? And when I say risk, I'm talking about the way that the Democrat liars will use it against the Republican Party and Donald Trump. Let us know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.